Lon Strickler is a Fortean researcher, author, and publisher of the syndicated Phantoms and Monsters blog that he began in 2005, which has steadily grown in popularity and is read daily by tens of thousands of paranormal enthusiasts, investigators, and those seeking the truth. His research and reports have been featured on hundreds of online media sources, and of course he's helped out with numerous television programs as well, including helping me out in the past with Ghost Stalkers, and now he joins. Lon, we talked a lot about the Sykesville Monster for that episode of Ghost Stalkers, and I was so mad that it never made it into the episode.
Is that right?
They focused, exclusively on ghosts, and I guess they filmed a bunch of stuff about it, but when they edited it, they kept the edit to just the ghosts. So I was very upset because I thought that Sykesville Monster was such a unique tie-in to the weird stuff that was going on in that whole area.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that town has had a lot of stuff and going on, and the woman who used to actually promote the town, she did a lot of the ghost walks and stuff in Sykesville, and she ran across my story and kind of ballooned from there.
What I do like about your research, though, is that you are very upfront with the fact that some of this is just as much urban legend as it is factual sightings, and all of this kind of mixes together into creating these reports. And you're trying to get to the truth of those reports, but that you're also taking into account some of the stories and the mythologies that have built up around some of these sightings.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about Chicago in particular, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to come out and say what this really is or what I think this is. I mean, I have really no idea. And in fact, this is a big enigma to me. The fact that these things are going on in a large group like this in a short period of time is pretty remarkable.
So is that how you got contacted about this? Because people know you as a guy to go to talk about some of these weird sightings, and so they start looking up, who can I contact about weird things, and your name pops up?
It may have been, but the first report that we got this year was posted on Manuel Navarrette's UFO Clearinghouse, and he has sent me stories before, so we knew each other. So he sent this to me, and I was interested in it. I didn't know how true it was or anything. The woman hadn't been interviewed yet, so I posted it, and not long after that, MUFON's started receiving a couple of reports as well. Now, I went ahead and I guess it was 2 reports. I went ahead and posted those, and I started getting more and more interested in it because frankly, I mean, if these people saw what they said they saw and had no knowledge of the flying humanoid phenomena, their descriptions were coming pretty close to what people had described in Point Pleasant and other situations since then. And so I started getting interested, and it kind of started a snowball. And I started putting out there that, if you've had a sighting in Chicago or in the area, to contact me. And Manuel and I have been getting the bulk of the reports.
And so this rolled out like around April or so. People started reporting some of these sightings to you?
Yeah, the first report came in early April. Now, there have been some reports we received later from sightings in March. And, of course, there was a sighting last year as well, and which I think is substantiated. And, of course, there were 3 sightings back in 2011 that I included as part of this investigation. But at this point, as of yesterday, in 2007, we've gotten 33 reports just in 2017.
So what is exactly are people reporting seeing to you? I mean, you mentioned, very much like the Point Pleasant Mothman. So we're talking like a humanoid type flying figure with glowing red eyes type of thing?
More or less. I mean, the first sighting pretty well mirrored the Mothman sightings from Point Pleasant. The 7-foot tall, very dark in color. The woman had walked up on it in the area of Oz Park, and it was just standing there, and it was huge. And as she watched it, it looked at her, and those red eyes looked right at her. And she said it was like I was looking into its soul or something to that effect. And not long after that, it shot up in the air like a rocket and unfurled its wings midair and took off.
And this is one of those stories for those who aren't familiar with the Point Pleasant Mothman. You know, we've talked about it for multiple episodes, and you can go back and hear whole episodes of that. But it's something that's become kind of part of the American mythology that these winged humanoid creatures have been seen in other places, and of course Point Pleasant being the most famous, but this creature has been seen other places before.
I've received reports of flying humanoids, gargoyle-like beings, large bat humanoids, you know, it runs the gamut, but I've received reports for years now, ever since I've been doing this, all over the country. But, the sightings themselves kind of concentrate in certain areas of the country, upper Midwest, mid-Atlantic area, Appalachia. They seem to have the most number of sightings. Now, this group of sightings that has been occurring in Chicago, in my opinion, and I think I'm right about this, is probably the largest group of sightings of a being of this nature since Point Pleasant.
Yeah, I thought I saw that there's been over 20 sightings.
I have documented 38 sightings altogether.
Wow. So, and I know that the original, Point Pleasant Mothman, there was only really just a handful that really survived as being considered authentic accounts. So, this seems like it's much more prevalent, and in a time when people are able to document these sightings better. I mean, I'm sure I've seen some photographs online. I'm sure you're getting imagery from people to corroborate their stories.
Well, that's been a big issue, though. Most of the photos that we received are pretty indiscernible. This thing moves around pretty quickly, and it seems by the time people, and I do believe what the people are telling me, by the time they see it, it's gone, and they really haven't had much of a chance to get the cell phone out and take a photograph of it. A lot of these have been at night, so there's very little light in the area. But, I think the shock value is the biggest hindrance to any photos being taken.
Well, also that too, but I mean, if you look at the original Mothman reports, that the being that people were seeing kind of had a mesmerizing power over the witnesses. And maybe this one has the same type of thing where as you're seeing it, you're kind of, under its power for the duration of that sighting.
That may be possible. Some of the witnesses have stated that they've had a sense of foreboding or fear. That we had one sighting or two sightings in particular where the witnesses were right up to this thing, and they had no thought, even any thoughts about taking photographs to it. So there could be something to that.
And as always, when you get these type of reports, you have to look at the person that's reporting them as much as you are the information that you're getting. And I'm sure that, you have to put a lot of these to the sniff test. But I thought I saw somewhere that one of the stories might have even come from a police officer, one of the sightings.
Yeah, one of the sightings in the Auburn-Gresham neighborhood of Chicago came directly from a police officer. He was in that neighborhood. It was at night, and a whole group of people were standing out in front of this building looking up at something. They got flagged down by this group. He and his partner walked up to the building, looked up. It was a 3-story building, and they saw what he called a shadow, a dark shadow. And when his eyes started to adjust, he described it as an emaciated if it was a human itself, it was emaciated, but he could tell it was actually human. And by the time they got their lights, their flashlights up to it, it took off. The wings unfurled, they took off toward the south, and it left, as it was moving away, it was shrieking.
I know with the...
And
sorry, go ahead.
A witness had told him and that this thing had been in the neighborhood for about 2 days previous to that.
Oh, wow. I know that with the Point Pleasant Mothman sightings, there was some differentiation between some of the reported sightings. I mean, there was a lot of similarities too, but some of them also had different characteristics that they would report that others didn't remember seeing. Are you seeing kind of an across-the-board similar description for this being, or are there still little minor differences from report to report?
Well, the early reports kind of mirrored, like I said before, the Mothman, the feathers, the huge wings, the big eyes. They kind of, then people started calling it a lechusa, or a supernatural owl man. Then it kind of progressed into a huge bat-like being with membrane-like wings, shaped just like that of a huge bat. Most of the sightings say the wingspan runs anywhere from 8 to 10 foot. The being runs anywhere from 6 to 7, some to 8 foot tall. Always dark in color. And it moves. I mean, it flies in a nature that is just not natural. It can hover in midair without flapping its wings, moves up and down vertically. And a lot of the sightings have had those large red flashing eyes. We also had two sightings where they got a very good look at it, and they said it had a pointed crest, small pointed crest coming from the back of its head. So, I mean, there's been a variation of sightings. I personally believe, just because of the locations and the way this thing has been seen and described, that there's probably at least 3 of these beings in the area.
So it's not one being being seen multiple times. It's multiple beings being seen multiple times.
That's what I think.
And with, when you think about it, you would think something that has an 8-foot wingspan probably does have some ability to soar. And by soar, I mean, to be able to fly without having to pump its wings multiple times. But it would also have to be something that is pretty enormous for people to be judging 8-foot wingspans from the ground. I mean, I know that I've seen eagles flying around, and I've thought that was one of the biggest wingspans that I've ever seen in the air, but I would never guess that it's 8 feet from being on the ground. So we're talking about something that must be very, very large in their field of vision.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and they've seen it, even when it's high up in the air, people have talked about it ducking in and out of clouds. They've been able to see that it has some size to it.
Is there anything in that area that people could be mistaking for this? I mean, I know obviously, you look at, first of all, some of the different aircraft that we have now. We were talking about, people have drones now. You look at some of the flight paths of different planes and some of the small craft they might be using, weather testing equipment, all that stuff. Is there anything that you found in your research that might be fitting the bill of what it is that they're seeing and that they're just mistaken?
We've looked into everything, I believe. We looked into the drones, the way this thing maneuvers. I've got to discount that. Mm-hmm. As far as someone being in a squirrel suit, well, they had done a splat on one of those buildings by this time. And as far as natural, as far as being a large bird, there are large birds in the area. There are large vultures, buzzards, herons. Sometimes a sandhill crane will make its way into the area. But none of these descriptions even match closely to what those things are.
And even
so,
I was gonna say, even so,
Go
when
ahead.
you see one of those fly, you know, you can recognize the aerial ability of a bird. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a little small bird or if it's a giant bird like a heron. Like, they're gonna have the same characteristics in flight.
Yeah, I mean, they'll get up into the thermals and glide, and this thing does the same thing. But as far as being closer to the ground and getting around, this thing has been seen gliding close to the ground as well as flapping its wings and with propulsion. So, yeah, it's not a bird. I mean, and the fact that it can be up in the air, turn its head, and look back at someone, and then turn on a dime. That a bird can't do that.
It just seems like for everything that you think that it might be, there's one little defining characteristic to let you know, like, nope, it's not this, because there's just that one little thing that you say, well, even if it could be this, it wouldn't be able to do that. So it's like almost like it's got all the bases covered to make sure that nobody misinterprets it as being something other than what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there are enough variations in these descriptions to discount it being something natural or man-made.
And what's interesting about it too is that the sightings have been, they've kept going on. It's not like there's been has there been any kind of a prolonged lull at all in the amount of time? I mean, to have 30-something sightings, they must be happening pretty frequently.
We did have a lull in July for about 4 weeks, but then they picked up again, and then we started getting sightings that had happened during that period. So, but we had like a 4-week period where we didn't get any reports at all.
Well, I mean, I think people know, that you're the person to go to for things like this, running the Phantoms and Monsters website. This is what you report on. This is your career. But what are some of the other folks in the area saying? What are people who work in the aerospace industry or zoologists or anything in that area? Are they following along with this as much as you are? Has this been something that's been entering into the public consciousness?
I've been working with several people that live in and around Chicago who know the area, the history, and and they're just as dumbfounded as I am. I really haven't talked to any zoologists. Nobody has contacted me that's a zoologist or a naturalist. The fact that we have had several police officers verify that people are talking about this. This is making the rounds in the city. And that we've also had people who work in local government who have anonymously but have confirmed that City Hall definitely knows what's going on as well. So as far as someone that's a professional coming out and making a claim or making an inquiry, no, that just hasn't happened.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned City Hall, because I was looking at a story from, I think it was from the end of July, and in that story it mentioned that you had reached out to the Chicago Police Department and that they told you that they don't have anything in their database of any reports of sightings like this. And I think that strikes me as being something that has to be a PR spin, because if you're getting as many reports as you have, somebody has seen this thing and somebody has called the police, which means that they're either discounting these and not even bothering to enter them into the log, or they are purposely redacting them and not releasing any information about them.
There have been, to my knowledge, 4 Freedom of Information Act applications sent to Chicago Police Department, and each one of them has come back to have no record of it, but they come back quickly. When you do a Freedom of Information Act application, it usually takes weeks, if not months, to even get any type of verification that they had anything in a record. These have come back within a week.
I mean, that's that
in my mind, somebody knows something.
Right, I was going to say
they know more what they're saying.
And especially these days where everybody is. I can tell you, we're in New Bedford, Massachusetts. We broadcast from, and this is a small city of about 90,000 people. But there's an entire Facebook group dedicated to people who just sit around listening to the police scanner all day, and they post all of the calls that are up there. And if something like this was getting put out over the radio, there'd be people that are sharing it and being like, hey, I just heard on the scanner this happened. So it almost seems like if they're getting these calls, they must have an edict to have radio silence when it comes to dealing with them.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. I haven't heard anything about any dispatcher or any 911 calls coming through. But then again, none of the witnesses who I have talked to have mentioned about calling 911. So that probably tells you something right there.
Well, I mean, I think, too, like they know that you're a friendly audience to take one of these reports because you're not going to judge them, but they may be afraid that law enforcement might kind of say, okay, what have you been taking tonight?
Yeah, right. That's right.
But still, with this type of, activity, with this high level of sightings, has there been anything in your career and all the things that you've documented where you've seen this many sightings of something in such a small amount of time?
No, I haven't. I mean, this is unique. This is, in my opinion, historical because I have no knowledge of anything like this ever happening. Even Point Pleasant. I mean, that was those sightings were kind of sporadic within a year period before the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which they blamed as the Mothman being a harbinger of doom or disaster. But there were actually a few sightings after that, and in fact, in the area around Point Pleasant, there have been Mothman sightings for years. So. But the fact that these sightings are in the last 4 or 5 months that we've gotten so many, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to classify it, but it is historical in my opinion.
And I've seen that you've gone on the record with some of the media that's been reporting on this and saying that you don't feel that this being is any kind of a harbinger. You don't think that there's anything to worry about, like where Point Pleasant ties in their Mothman sightings with the collapse of the Silver Bridge. You don't think there's any kind of impending doom coming from these sightings?
No, I don't really buy into that harbinger of doom.
Do you think that the original? Do you think the original Mothman was tied into the bridge collapse?
No.
Yeah,
I really don't. I think that was perpetuated by John Keel for the most part. But there was a lot of stuff going on other than the Mothman sightings at the Point Pleasant area. You had the Men in Black, and there's a lot of UFO activity. So, frankly, Point Pleasant and the area around is a pretty strange place.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had Dogman sightings in or around that area, all kinds of weird stuff. So, I've heard a lot of things from there.
Have there been? I mean, of course, you document all kinds of different types of activity with your site, Phantoms and Monsters. Has there been other types of sightings? I mean, obviously, it's not Indrid Cold knocking on everybody's door, but have there been increased reports of other high strangeness around Chicago at the same time as these winged creature sightings?
That's what's interesting. Chicago and the Lake Michigan area has always had a reputation for a lot of UFO activity and a lot of paranormal activity. And for whatever reason, that doesn't seem to be as prevalent as it has been during other periods. I mean, the UFO sightings, for the most part, have waned off.
So it seems like everything else is kind of going quiet, while this, whatever it is having its time in the paranormal spotlight.
It appears to be that way. I mean, unless it's just something that we're missing. But my colleague Butch Wachowski and I have been watching the UFO reporting centers, and there is just very little coming out of the Chicago area.
I know that, and I think this has to kind of enter into the discussion a little bit, and I don't want to turn this political at all, but when you look at what Chicago is going through, there's a lot of strife in that city right now. There's a lot of, there's a high level of crime going on. There's also a lot of, political unrest. There's all the situation with Chicago insisting on retaining its sanctuary city policies, even though it's going to lose all kinds of funding from the federal government in doing so. There's a lot of socio-economic things going on in Chicago right now that makes it very unique amongst the rest of the country. Do you feel like there's any possibility that that atmosphere is tied into these sightings one way or another?
I believe personally that these type of beings, and I have seen it in other places, these type of beings show up when there's dysfunction. And if you look at the overall situation with Chicago, I can safely say there's dysfunction there. So that may very well be a factor. Though I had a reporter call me the other day and asked me, said, do you believe these flying humanoid sightings in Chicago can be blamed on the Trump administration? And of course, I wasn't going to give him an answer on that. I don't need to be on his Twitter feed. So I don't. A lot of people have a lot of theories, but it does seem that these type of things can be associated with dysfunction.
I mean, it's not, out of the realm of possibility that there could be knowledge within the administration, that there could be, some sort of, a report could have crossed somebody's desk here or there that they're aware of it. But I don't know if anything they could do to cause it. I mean, I can't see Steve Bannon getting up that high.
No.
But
I don't think it has anything to do with that.
Although we haven't seen Jared Kushner for a while.
I think these beings are flesh and blood. I really do. I think they're supernatural as well. I mean, to the extent that they're not here 24/7. They are coming in from someplace else. They're either a portal or a wormhole or whatever you want to call it. I just think it's coming from another reality, and it's coming in for specific reasons, or there's something, a tear in the fabric of the veil. I don't know. Maybe this thing is leaking in and out. I just don't know. But
you felt that way about other. You felt that way about other beings of this kind, though, too. It's not. I mean, it's not exclusively just this. I remember talking about that with the Sykesville monster.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of the cryptid sightings that people experience and have something to do with alternate realities. I really do. I think there's a close association between Bigfoot sightings, particularly Bigfoot sightings on the East Midwest, as opposed to these North Pacific. I think those may be actual natural for the most part, but the sightings that are being seen in the eastern part of the United States and the central part of the United States, I believe those are probably some type of non-terrestrial being.
If you don't mind my asking, what would be the differentiation as to why you would think one would be a naturally occurring and the other would be an interdimensional? What is the differentiation for you between the two?
Well, the fact that they seem to disappear a lot, and that a lot of the descriptions of these hominids, or whatever you want to call them, they've got more of a human aspect to them. The one I saw, the Sykesville monster, it reminded you of a Neanderthal. I think there is a tear in the fabric. I think there is some way that reality is our reality is subject to other realities, and that these beings, and I'm talking several types of cryptids, are not necessarily natural, but I think they're coming from someplace else.
So they're a flesh and blood being when they're here, but they just can go somewhere else very easily.
Yeah, I do believe that.
When I hear reports about something like this, where you might, if you get one or two of them, I tend to think, okay, somebody's mistaking something for something else, or it could be anything as simple as they don't understand what a certain bird looks like in flight, or maybe it's even a kite or something. But when you get the amount of sightings that you've had and the amount of sightings that you brought in, I mean, that's something that starts to get people, instead of just hearing these stories, it starts to get people out there looking for these things. And is that something that you have heard about? Are people actually going out and kind of having like, you know, searching parties where they're out spending the night looking up at the sky, waiting to see if they see one of these beings?
Yeah, that has been a problem. I have had a lot of people contacting me. You know, when you put your contact information out there, you're kind of leave yourself open to all kinds of communication. And I have a lot of people asking me how they can catch this thing, where they should go. And I just try to stay out of that. I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea of what this thing is. If somebody would happen to come across one of them, then fine, you know, we'll go from there. But I am not advocating anybody go out and start hunting for this thing.
But even just trying to, you know, be a little bit more vigilant when you're outside, you know, maybe looking up at the sky a little bit more, that can't hurt, because, you know, if you're paying a little bit more, I mean, as long as you're not driving and looking up at the sky, but, you know, if while you're out taking your walk, you glance up at the sky a few times, that probably can be more beneficial to anything. I wonder just if there's more people paying attention to them, then maybe they'll show themselves more, if you get what I'm saying. You know, the fact that you're giving the energy to this, it will respond in kind.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I mean, I think people are keeping an eye out. And I know the word's gotten out. I'd say in the past, I don't know, maybe last 4 or 5 weeks, I get anywhere from 10 to 20 phone calls a day.
Wow.
From just regular people calling me that are scared to death of what this thing may be.
And is it limited to just Chicago and like the immediate suburbs, or are we getting similar creatures popping up in other places?
Well, I have been told that there have been 2 sightings in the Milwaukee area during this period. I can't verify that. I was told by someone who's well known in the cryptozoology field. Of course, you know, Linda Godfrey had reported on the bat squatch sightings in the La Crosse area of Wisconsin years ago. And, you know, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin have been known for large flying anomalies or thunderbirds for years now. So,
I mean,
it's something that's indigenous to the area. Yeah, I mean, people have made reports.
I mean, I just literally threw up a map real fast of both Milwaukee and Chicago just to see, and you know, they're about 90 miles apart from each other, both on the shores of Lake Michigan. So, I mean, you could be talking about the same beings. I'm sure. I'm not an 8-foot wingspan flying creature, but I can imagine 90 miles is pretty easy to cover if you have that type of flight ability.
Yeah, they may very well be getting the same type of thing up there. Yeah, it's not that far away. It's on the lake as well. Is the lake has something to do with it? Well, you know, most of the sightings have been along the lakefront from Chicago, North Chicago, down south into the Indiana border. There are a lot of marshy areas in there. That may have something to do with it. I don't know. I mean, but it does seem to have some draw to water, but then again, you know, we've had other sightings that weren't anywhere near water. So, you know, like I said before, it's an enigma. We just don't know what the reason is, you know. But the fact that it's being seen in areas with a high concentration of people a lot of times, it is kind of fascinating to me. It's putting itself out there.
And how have these people been having these sightings? What have been the circumstances? Are they out walking? Are they driving? How have a lot of these, you know, if you had to kind of put your finger on what you would say is some of the most common ways they're sighted?
It's usually people that are just out milling about, you know, spending the regular part of their day, or, you know, just enjoying the time they have to be out walking around. It's we've had joggers, we've had families, we've had couples who've been walking the dog or something to like that, or yeah, it's just been nothing in particular, just it's just normal activity, and people come across this thing, or for most part, it comes across them.
And has it been during a specific window of time, or is it day or night, or?
It's been all periods of time. It's been day and night, but for the most part, it's anywhere from 9 to midnight local time.
So it's at a part where it's dark, and so if you see something like red glowing eyes, you're gonna know what you're seeing if it's something that's happening at night.
But we haven't had the glowing eyes haven't been mentioned in some of the reports, so
maybe they just turn them on when they need to.
Maybe just turned them off somehow. I don't know.
It's like, honey, turn the headlights on. Oh yeah, right. No, I forgot.
Yeah.
If you had to say the one kind of the one defining characteristic, would it be the size of the creature and the size of the wingspan? Is that probably the one thing that's the most common amongst the reports? Because you've mentioned some of the different features that people have reported, but there must be some pretty common traits too.
Yeah, I'd say the body description, the dark color, the wingspan, and the height are fairly consistent. The way it moves has been fairly consistent, though. The actual confrontations there have been 2 or 3 very personal like encounters, but in particular, the one we had on 1400 North Shore Lakeshore Drive back on August the 9th, that was remarkable, and that was very close and personal.
What were the circumstances of that sighting?
Well, that was on Wednesday, August 9th. It was about 9:20 p.m. Central Time. It was the location was 1400 North Shore Lakeshore Drive and East Schiller Street. The witness and her husband, and they were visiting her parents. They were from Washington, D.C. Her parents lived at 1400 North Lakeshore Drive in a condominium. She was born and raised in Chicago. So anyway, they were taking a brief walk along North Lakeshore Drive, walking south. As they approached East Schiller Street, they noticed something large and dark flying towards them from their left, which was the direction of Lake Michigan. Both witnesses were startled as this flying being crossed ahead of them at an altitude about 20 feet or so. They watched it sweep upwards over the trees in front of 1400 Lakeshore Drive, then stop in midair after it reached a height just a few stories from the top of the building. It hovered with a large pair of wings for approximately 5 seconds as it seemed to be focused on a set of windows, like it was looking in it and just sitting there. Then it bent backwards and fell into a deep dive towards the trees. The witnesses hurriedly walked in the direction of the intersection and then turned right onto East Schiller Street, quickly walking towards the entrance to the condominium building. But then suddenly this large winged being slowly descended in front of them, no more than 20 foot away. It hovered for about 5 feet above the sidewalk with its wings spread wide open, and it peered at the couple with its large, bright red eyes that slowly altered back and forth in intensity. Several people on the other side of the street, including a delivery van driver, reacted with screams and frightened yelps. The winged being hovered for about 10 seconds and quickly pulled the wings onto its body and shot up quickly into the night sky. There was no sound other than a rush of air as it flew upwards. The description of the being was that it was human-like with a small head that narrowed at the top It had legs like a human with long feet that tapered. Neither witness noticed any arms. The body was 5 to 6 feet in height. It had wide wings that resembled the top wings of a butterfly attached along the body. In fact, the illumination from the building entrance could be seen through the wings, so it looked to be made of a skin or a membrane. The wingspan was easily 10 foot or more, and the legs pulsated as it hovered in the air. The overall color was very dark, like a deep bluish green, and the skin on the body may have been moist since it was shining. It was glistening. The eyes were large compared to the head, slightly slanted and alternated back and forth in brightness. Made no sound other than a slight humming from the pulsating legs. That was a new one. I hadn't heard that one before. Both witnesses stated that they felt a vibration that emanated from the being, and the witness did see at least one camera flash come from across the street. Neither witness was able to retrieve their phones. The fear and shock was just too profound during the encounter. The witness said she literally fell to her knees after the incident, and that her husband had to assist her the rest of the way. And by the time I talked to them, which was 18 hours later, neither one of them had had much sleep. And in fact, they were supposed to leave Chicago the next day, and she told me she is in no condition to get on a plane. So I don't know when they left.
Well, I already know that my co-host Stephanie would want nothing to do with this because you described the creature using one of her least favorite words in the world when you said it was described as moist. So she's out. You hate that word, right?
No, that's
I hadn't heard that
word
before, but I have heard people say that there did seem to be some type of shining on the body from lights in the area, but they were pretty close to this thing.
It is. That's really interesting because it's like you got to think it must have like a scaly type of, almost like a reptilian type of skin.
Yeah, this actually, the description, and I bantered this about with a couple of people. It actually seemed like it was like a insect-like body. I don't know, I don't know if that's what it is, but it did seem to have an insect-like exoskeleton type body with the shining body. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that's followed your work and knows where you have done a bulk of your research. And also they heard you pronounce the word water, so they know that you're from Pennsylvania. I can say that because people make fun of the way we say car. Yeah. So have you had the opportunity yet to go out to Chicago yourself and to try to, maybe have a firsthand encounter with this, or would you want to?
Well, I'd like to. I mean, it's just not in the cards right now, though. My colleague Butch and I might figure something out. We might get out there. But we've got people out there now.
Right.
And they're doing a good job, and they're keeping everything, when we get a site and they check it out and we get as much information we can from it. But I got to say the witnesses themselves have been excellent. I've been doing this for a long time now, and these witnesses have been as forthright as any as I've ever had. And in fact, I have tried to get them to embellish on their original description, and they just won't do it. It's almost like it's ingrained in them.
I mean, you also do a heavy amount of work in your own home region, and there's no shortage of strange stories where you live.
Oh, no.
I mean,
these flying humanoid type beings are within the mythology of this area. And in fact, I had an encounter back in '88, and I know they're around here.
I mean, but you've covered all kinds of strange stories over the years. It seems like, and it's not just your work. I mean, obviously you've done a great job in chronicling all this, but talking to some other people that are from the Pennsylvania area, it runs the gamut of every type of strangeness there. You guys, it's like your whole state is like our Bridgewater Triangle, especially Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's some really big hot spots in Pennsylvania. there are a lot of researchers. Stan Gordon, Timothy Renner, Butch Wachowski, Eric Altman. All of us have had, some really strange accounts over the years. And Pennsylvania is, it's an unusual state because there's a lot of wilderness in this state. People don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of places for things to hide, too.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, when you get out to especially the western side of the state or some of these more rural areas, you're talking about places where things could hide, where, UFOs could land and nobody would ever see them, or cryptid beings could exist for hundreds of years and nobody would come across them. And you've had everything there. You've had these UFO sightings. You've had, werewolf sightings. You've had all kinds of strange creatures that have come through there. And it's almost like, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on why they would be drawn to that area, except for maybe, like you said, the ability to hide.
Yeah, and overall, Pennsylvania is a fairly conservative state, especially people who live out in the rural areas. And, they're not prone to exaggeration or contacting a paranormal investigator to put a report out. And very rarely they want their names used. And the fact that we do get the reports that we get, attests to that there's something definitely going on.
While these sightings have been going on in Chicago, have you been getting any kind of increased activity where you are of any type? It could be, anything from ghosts to increased UFO sightings or anything. Has there been any kind of elevated sightings where you are?
No, actually, it has decreased. It really has.
Wow.
That just seems to be the overall, I don't know, it's just like everything is taking its energy and going to the Chicago area. That's what it feels like to me, anyway. We just have not had the reports that, and even in Pennsylvania, we just have not had that many reports like we normally do.
I wonder if we start reaching out to like other researchers in other parts of the country, if they would report the same thing. If they say, you know what, it's been abnormally quiet here too, that maybe this is kind of all that weirdness, all of that, everything that is beyond our normal rational thought. Maybe it's all kind of congregating in that one area.
It would be interesting to find out. Yes, it would be.
And if that's the case, I'm sure Rahm Emanuel would have no problem standing up and saying, see, look, you can't change anything with Chicago because we've even got immigrant winged creatures coming here, so we have to protect all of them.
I don't know how much politics has to do with it.
Listen, all I'm saying, Lon, is if they put up the border wall, it's not going to stop these things from coming in.
No, it won't.
So they'll just fly right over it. But maybe that's it. Maybe they heard that, Chicago's a sanctuary city. They're like, hey, if they'll accept immigrants, they'll accept us. Why not just fly in? What I find interesting, too, is that, like you said, when you're getting these reports, you're getting them from a cross-section of society. You're getting them from people who actually have something to lose from making up a story, so that you've got to think that, you've got a built-in layer of trust, especially when law enforcement is reporting things. That's always whenever... And we hear it all the time with police officers. It's always like, I'm going to tell you this, but I never told you this.
Right.
And so you'll get the story from them, but they'll never kind of go on the record with it. But still, that if they're willing to at least talk about it when they know the risks associated with it, it must have been pretty profound for them.
Well, I will say this, and I'm not going to name names, but this sighting I just described, the husband, who didn't want to really talk a whole lot, but he did. He's a well-known professional athlete.
Well,
and we are getting sightings from professionals, lawyers, people that that are well known in the area.
Can you at least narrow it down to a sport for me?
I'm not going to go there.
Well, only because I find that baseball players are more superstitious than the rest, and they're a little bit more willing to talk about things. But I've heard some interesting tales in professional sports locker rooms, so I know exactly what you mean. Especially if if it's a contract year, they really don't want to say anything, because then they'll say, "Do we want to give them the big money? Maybe we have to have them mentally evaluated first." So now I assume that if this our show is listened to worldwide, so I'm sure we have a good amount of people that listen to us in the Chicago area. Is there a way that people can reach out to you if they have sightings or if they've had one that they want to report to you?
Yeah, the best way is to either call me directly, and it's 410-241-5974, or send me an email at lonstrickler@phantomsandmonsters.com.
And then, of course, I'm sure you have a process when these reports come in of how you weed them out and know like which ones are worth following, or do you just kind of follow everyone until it leads you to a point where it just doesn't feel right?
It's always been my policy with any type of investigation to give the witness the benefit of the doubt until I figure otherwise. And, I do want to talk to them if possible. I want to get as much information and see how they answer questions and, and I go from there.
I just wonder what'll happen if you hit another, if there's an extended lull and, maybe something happens. Maybe there's, and again, I don't want to wish anything bad to happen, but maybe there's something that goes down. And then people are like, well, that's what these things were around for. Like, it becomes almost one of those things where you just are going to start assigning anything that happens. You're going to assign it to this because you think that you want it to be a harbinger of something. So that's the only thing that I worry about with this, is that something will go wrong and then it becomes these creatures are to blame.
Yeah, and that kind of concerns me as well. I received all kinds of theories from a lot of people about what may or may not happen in the Chicago area, and I'm just not going to go there. I do recognize what people thought about Point Pleasant and the Silver Bridge, though I don't buy into that. And there have been other instances of disaster where people after the fact would come and say, well, we saw this flying thing here, this flying thing there. I mean, the bridge collapse in Minneapolis is a good example. Chernobyl, Fukushima, after the fact, people say, oh yeah, we saw this thing flying around. And, I'm just not buying that.
See, I personally think that the sign of the apocalypse is coming out of Chicago, but I don't think it's these winged creatures that people are seeing. I think it was the Cubs winning the World Series. I think now that that's happened, impending doom.
Yeah, you were surprised as much as I was, believe me.
All right, Lon. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And again, Phantoms and Monsters is the website if you want to check it out, phantomsandmonsters.com. Go there. Read some of the, you're just going to fall down the rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, you're going to be like, where'd 3 hours go? Because you're just going to read all these great stories, all the different encounters that Lon has had both personally and collected over the years. And of course, they can follow along with all your work on that website and online, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and keep us up to date with everything that's going on.
Thanks again, and I will.
All right. Have a great night. That is Lon Strickler. Again, if you have a sighting that you want to report to him, you can do so. Just go to his website, phantomsandmonsters.com. You'll find all of his contact information. And as I said, I'm not kidding. You will lose like many hours just going through and reading these stories, but it's time well spent. It is absolutely fascinating, the career that he's had in just documenting these things. And what's funny and what I like about Lon is that no story is too weird for him.
Right.
Whatever stories comes in, he will follow them and he will see exactly where it leads. And he does, when other researchers don't, he does look at the bigger picture of how all these different types of phenomena can be connected. Like as I mentioned, when I was talking to him for Ghost Stalkers, it was an episode about a haunted hospital. And he was telling me about the Sykesville monster that he had a personal sighting of. And we started to say, well, wait a minute. If this weird creature is seen and all this ghostly activity is happening, like maybe there's a connection.
Right.
And that is, I'm hoping that if Haunted Towns is successful and they bring it back for another season and they're willing to let us kind of expand the boundaries a little bit more, I'm hoping we can eventually start doing those type of tie-ins with stuff. So it doesn't just have to be about ghost activity, but maybe all kinds of weirdness that happens. Right. So
I like that idea.
I do too, because that's what I like to do as a researcher.
As long as there's no aliens.
Well, sometimes that can play into it as well. At least the reported sightings of them. Sometimes it does factor in.
It does. It just scares me. That's all.
Well, again, it could just be sightings of them. It doesn't mean that they're actually there.
Right.
And it could just be that it's a form that something took. As you missed the episode where we were talking about the boogeyman, but, we talked about that idea that, sometimes these things can come in as different types of entities that will scare you. So, I don't know. All I know is that if these winged creatures start showing up around here,
right,
I'm going to be a little bit worried.
Just a little bit.
Well, no, mainly I'm going to be worried that the turkeys have started to figure out how to fly. Then we're all screwed.
Yep.
I was just talking about this with my son last night. I was telling him how, when I was a kid, I don't think I ever saw a turkey in the wild.
Really?
No, never. Never.
You know what? I didn't either. I didn't until I moved 3 miles away.
But when was that? Around the same time period of what I'm talking about.
Is it?
Yeah, because I don't know. It was probably like within the last 10 years.
I was going to say it was about 6 years ago.
That I started seeing turkeys in the wild. Before that, I never remember seeing them.
Right.
Now I see them every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even where I live, I've lived where I've lived for over 10 years. And in the early days of living there,
turkeys?
I never saw turkeys. Now it's nonstop. Now, like, I leave the house and they're walking in front of my house. So the
that's
turkeys,
what happened to me about 6 years ago.
The turkeys are taking over the world.
They could be.
You know what I saw today?
What?
I have a gigantic groundhog in my yard.
Do you?
Yes. He lives under my shed.
Okay.
And my dog is like obsessed with trying to catch him.
Right.
I was like, you're not going to catch him. First of all,
I
leave
have
him
one
alone.
in my yard.
But I don't think I've ever had one in all the years. I apparently have had a snake forever.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
This I was unaware of. This so I was at the beginning of the season. I think it was the first time I mowed the lawn this year, and I'm trimming back some of the bushes in front of the house, and all of a sudden this gigantic, I'm talking huge garter snake.
You. Nope.
Well, I mean, I could tell it was a garter snake.
Right. Nope.
So I wasn't.
Still not okay.
But it just comes out. I mean, and this thing is like large. It's long, but it's also like really thick around, and it crawled out from the bush, and it. So it crawls out from under the bush, and it's like going over by my staircase, and I'm like, how does this snake get up the stairs? But he got up the stairs.
Yes, they do.
And there's this one little tiny crack, maybe about that big around in my stairs, like in the brick. And so he climbs into that, and he goes down, and that's, I guess, where he lives.
Nope.
And so I
thank you.
said something to my wife. I was like, Adam and I saw a huge snake. And she's like, oh, yeah, he's been there forever. Like, he's been there for, like, years since Adam was little. And I was like, the same snake? She's like, oh, yeah. He's always out in front of the house. It's like, I never saw him before.
That's terrifying.
And I thought about, like, should I just, like, spackle that hole shut? And she's like, no, leave him alone. He's fine. Like, he doesn't bother anything. He's probably eating other things that we don't want in the yard.
Probably.
So I'm like, okay. Like, there's a lot of things that I just want to kill when I see them. Snakes don't really bother me.
Spiders would be that for me.
Yeah, I don't like spiders. Bees I'm terrified of.
Yes.
So, like, when I see these, like, I want to just kill them. And everybody tells me, like, no, there's, like, an ecosystem here.
Right.
Don't mess with it. Like, the thing that I love the most, like, I let my grass grow high. And people are like, why do you let your grass grow so high? Why do you take so long to mow your lawn? I was like, because when my grass grows high, the dragonflies come in. When the dragonflies come in, all the bees go away.
Very true. I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that.
Keeping it natural.
I was at lunch today, and I mean, I'm allergic to bees, so we had one hovering over our food because we were eating outside, and it kept happening over and over again. And the friend that I was with had said, "Oh, I feel bad. I don't want to kill it because everybody's big on the Save the Bees movement." I said, "No, you're not supposed to kill honeybees. That's a jerk.
Right.
We can kill the jerk."
Wasps and hornets.
Yes.
I still have not found the reason why they exist.
No, and now I have great black wasps in my yard. Have you seen those?
Probably.
They're 2 inches long.
Yeah, I've probably seen. Are those the ones that are in the ground?
Yes. They're terrifying.
Well, what's worse about them is that they fight.
Yes.
I found that out when I went to go play golf one day years ago.
Oh.
And in this golf course, they had an all-dirt parking lot. So I pull in the morning. It's early. I park my car.
Yep.
I grab my clubs out of the back. I go and I play golf. And when I say I go and I play golf, I mean it took me like 4 hours to play 9 holes because I suck at golf. So I come back. It's like lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can see throughout the entire parking lot are these holes in the ground.
Yes.
And these hornets flying out of there and fighting with each other in midair.
Yes. Yep, I see that every day now.
And I just stood there and said, I can't get to my car. And the guy who worked at the golf course was like, just go.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
He's like, just go. They won't bother you. I'm like, yes, they will. They're already fighting each other.
Right.
Like, they're going to walk. It's like when you walk down the street and you see two guys fighting with each other.
Yeah, you don't want to walk through that.
And you're like, hey, guys. Like, I'm just passing through. And they look at each other and say, let's just both kick this guy's ass instead.
Yes.
You know, and that's what's going to happen if I go through there. So, thankfully, I don't have to deal with that. You know, if I see holes in my yard, like I immediately like cover them up with dirt because I'm afraid that that's what they are. Which probably sucks for like the groundhog.
Probably figure it out.
But like this guy is huge and fat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I don't know what you've been eating, but it looks like you're eating better than I am.
Right. They're mean, I heard.
Last week we had an event. And at the end of the night, we were loading everything back up into the car,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the Historical Society take the trash out.
Yes.
And put it on the front steps.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody said anything about the trash. I was like, well, maybe somebody's going to come by and pick it up. So the next night, the Historical Society calls me and says, nobody got the trash. Nobody picked the trash up. You guys were supposed to take the trash. I was like, I was unaware we were supposed to take the trash.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, so I'll go get the trash. So I go and I get the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had already brought home all the pizza boxes, 15 pizza boxes. I threw those away.
Yep.
And so now, like, I really don't have any room left in my barrel for the trash, so I kind of shove it in there, but I get it in there.
Yep.
And then I go out there a couple days later, and, like, something had ripped open the bag at the top of the trash and had gotten into it. Like, there was no trash all around, but the hole was in the bag. And so I just happened to say to my wife as she was getting out of the car, I said, that's weird. Like, something opened up the top of the bag, but, like, didn't, like, pull everything all over the place. And she even said then, she's like, maybe it was a groundhog.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I said, I just saw the groundhog, she's like, yeah, I've seen him out there. He's huge. And I was like, yeah. She's like, I told you there was probably the groundhog that got into the trash. I was like, no way that groundhog was able to climb up the trash barrel.
He's big.
Because he's just big and
Hey, you
fat.
didn't think the snake could climb the stairs, so don't
That's
underestimate the groundhog.
Well, this ends this week's episode of the Weird World of Weisberg's Yard.
Right.
Join us next week when we'll be joined by Lauren Coleman to try to explain to me what it is that lives in the bushes next to my shed. There's
God.
there's a lot of wildlife in my yard for being surrounded by other houses, but
Hey, I got a lot of weird stuff in mine too. So
it's the fact that I just let nature run its course out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, whatever happens, it's just as much your yard as it is mine. It's the coyotes, they come through. There's a stray cat that's, well, I guess he's not a stray, but he's like never in his house.
Right.
But he always comes through. There's Matt, eventually I have to have you come over to my house. I have like 3 grills in my yard
Okay.
because like I've just like been,
Maybe the groundhog's using one of them.
no, the hornets live in them.
Oh.
So I have to
awesome.
have Matt come and remove them. Matt comes to my house and gets rid of the hornets for me.
Okay.
We have an agreement. He takes care of the nests. I go get some beer. And that's how we work it out. But I did take care of one on my own.
Wow. It's fancy.
I did open up one because I have 3 grills for a reason.
Okay.
I had one that I totally rebuilt that is a great grill. And then I got another one and I was going to rebuild that one. And because we have a neighborhood association and everything, I was going to rebuild that one, leave it down the beach. And then I didn't realize that they already had one. But this was my thinking when I got it. And then somebody gave us another grill. And so I had that out there.
Okay.
So all 3 grills are kind of like in an area. And sometimes when I'm cooking, like, you know, I will use multiple grills. And I'll use 2 because I only have 2 tanks. But I went and I opened up one. And I immediately slammed it. Hornets! And then I opened up the other one. Hornets! And then I slammed it. This is like the beginning of the summer. And then I opened up the third one. I was like, hornets, but not as many. So I left that one open. And then I ran into the house.
Hornets, but not as many.
And I got the hornet spray. And I sprayed down the nest. And I killed every hornet that was in there. And I sprayed the crap out of the nest. And I just left it like that. And it's like still, and it's been like 2 months. So my wife keeps saying, like, I think it's okay if you want to just go pull that nest out of there now and actually cook on the grill. I'm like, nope.
We have to get you one of those electric rackets.
As soon as
like
as a hornet has been in the grill, it's dead to me. No, I can't use that grill ever again.
My
So,
goodness.
I've actually been looking online and been like,
Really?
who has like a grill they're giving away that I can go pick up?
Why don't you just sell the ones you have?
Nobody wants to buy them.
You don't know
I
that.
just have to throw them away. I need to
Because
get Walter to come to my house. Is the biggest thing, but I don't want Walter to come to my house. It's a catch-22. There's this guy. I turned your mic down, man. I don't even think
That's
it's on.
fine.
There's this guy that we know.
I was gonna say nobody knows who Walter is, but do tell.
Well, there's this guy that lives in our town who goes around picking up all of the scrap metal for free because he goes and he cashes it in. But like the good thing about it is like a lot of people that will just pick up free scrap metal, they'll be like, yeah, put it out in front of your house in a pile and I'll come by and get it. Walter will like go into your yard and pick it all up and he's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll carry it back there. But you still got to kind of watch him out the window because you want to make sure he's not taking something that he's not supposed to because he's weird.
Awesome.
And he also has a tendency.
And he's from like some country that
We're not
we
sure.
have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it's like
It's kind of in the middle.
It's
This
like-
is-
If that
this is
makes
kinda
sense.
strange.
In the middle of what? I don't know. But it's in the middle,
I'm pretty sure he's from Fredonia, the country they made up for duck soup.
right?
Because like he has this weird accent that you can't place.
It's
And-
kind of Canadian, but kind of Eastern European.
You got Canadian. I never
Okay.
got Canadian
No?
until
Canadian,
but now that you
I
mention
thought- I
it,
picked
Canadian
a little
makes
bit.
sense.
Right?
It's kind of like I talk like this.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
weird. And then he has
That doesn't
like
do it justice.
No?
his laugh is ridiculous.
That's the only
See, now
impression
Tim's
they can't
impressions
do.
are usually on point. So that
Usually
one's not
they
on
are.
point.
My
No.
impressions are
Okay.
only on point if it's somebody that nobody knows.
Okay.
But his laugh is ridiculous because like he will laugh like
Oh God.
it's like so weird, and he has no teeth.
He had
And
one.
Does he listen
Two?
to the show?
He
no,
had a couple.
no, he doesn't listen to the show, and we're only on YouTube. But he does have a computer, and I know that he has a computer because, first of all, he found the computer in the trash,
Okay.
like when somebody was like throwing away a bunch of stuff. But I know that he has a computer because he frequently gets kicked out of McDonald's
Oh.
because he sits there all day drinking one cup of coffee to use their free Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So like he's actually not allowed because like I would just go to Walmart to McDonald's and be like, hey Walter, can you come to my house and get some scrap metal? But I know that he's not allowed there anymore,
Okay.
or he's like allowed there for a very limited amount of time. And I tried to explain to the people at McDonald's like he's like diner life. They're used to buying $1.50 cup of coffee and drinking it all day.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so
He's a nice guy, by the way.
he is, but first of all, he'll turn on you on a dime. Like if
Well,
he's
'cause
done
it's
with you,
metal
he's
and
done with
shiny.
you.
Well, if you're from the country that he's from, I'm sure that's common practice there.
The middle of nowhere.
Wherever that is. But then he's also very weird. Like I always like whenever he comes to my house, I tell my son like, stay in the house. Like I just don't want him to know there's a young boy living here. Like I just think it's probably in my best interest not to let him know that, because this is a guy who
This is
What
now
if he's
turning into
listening? What if
spooky
he's
after dark.
turned into a listener and you're
Right.
insulting him right now?
this is a guy who is known throughout town for when he burns leaves, he does it in
Yep.
his front yard, which
Okay.
he lives on like
This is why I thought he was European.
because of this.
Because he burns
Because of the
leaves in the
story.
front yard.
No, wait. I'm getting there. He lives on like a main drag that's a very busy road.
Okay.
There's a certain tattoo shop that used to be in town. He lives across the street from that.
Okay.
And when he goes out and he burns leaves in his yard, he does so completely naked
Stop it.
in the middle of the day.
Stop it.
He's just standing out there,
Is this real?
naked as can be,
No.
his possibly Canadian, possibly Eastern European dong hanging out in the wind,
Stop. This is real life.
and he's burning leaves. And we say to him, like, Walter, you can't burn leaves out in the nude. And he says, I don't want my clothes to catch on fire, which you can't really fault him for the logic. Because I'm sure that most fires that happen around leaf burning in the yard of people
There are.
has to do with their clothes
When you
catching on
burn
fire.
leaves, there are like the embers that kind of get
Yeah,
caught by the wind.
They shoot out at
You
you.
don't want that stuck
Yeah.
in your pee hole.
Can't.
Oh, you're saying so he should be wearing clothes to
It
protect
should be
his people.
something.
This is where I end
A,
this
s-
conversation.
a sock.
At least a sock.
Fire tire
wait.
sock. Maybe an of glove.
An of glove would be perfect. If you can just get the of glove to stay,
Right.
you'll be fine.
The question that is on everyone's mind.
Which, where the hell is the story going?
They're like, when? Wrap it up. Wrap this podcast up.
That? Wait, people are already asking how late the show is going to go. That, and does he get in trouble for his naked leaf burning?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a neighbor that he does not get along with. They hate each other.
Okay.
Because there's this whole story that goes back to tools that I won't even get into.
Because he might be from a other country that does not get along with this.
No, this
country.
person's American.
Okay,
but
all right.
they've had some business dealings that didn't go right. So anyway, the point of my story is, like, I have a bunch of metal that I need him to come and take, and he takes it for free. So.
And the girls might go because
and the girls will
Yes.
probably go because at this point I'm probably done with them.
I feel like this should turn into a regular segment. Like that
Weird
like
people of Wareham.
Just like a half-hour story time, like at the end.
The weird
We
people that
usually
we
talk
encounter.
about snacks. This took the place of the snacks tonight.
Well, I did mention the McDonald's, so that did come into play. There is food there, but the certainly, you know, the only catch is when he comes and takes all this free metal. I'm going to be like, all right, now I want you to take these 2 air conditioners because I don't want to pay to throw them away. He's going to be like, no, I can't take those. They charge me for those. You're like, I know, that's the point.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so yeah.
All right, he takes that stuff.
Does he?
Yeah. I remember he took some and like just took a hammer to it, just to to release the gas.
He lets all the Freon out of it and then throws it on there. Because as long as there's no Freon on it, they'll give him the scrap money for it. Right.
The only thing that he did do was he put his dog in his truck because he didn't want the dog to get.
But then told us to stand right next to it while he did.
Yeah, but we were standing right there.
Hold this for me while I hit it with a hammer.
He's more concerned about his dog than anybody else.
Right, that's true.
You know.
Well, I mean, you would pick your dog over any of us.
Oh,
so yeah. But certainly, we really could do a whole show on
you probably could.
The weird people of Wareham.
We'll save it for the backyard podcast.
And that's just weird Walter.
Scareham.
That's not even
Is
getting
there
in.
normal Walter?
Well, there's Crazy Walter. Crazy Walter's a completely different individual.
From
Wareham.
any special country?
He's all around.
No, he's American.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'm just wondering.
Crazy
that
Crazy
kinda was
Walter
pertinent to the story.
he drives around town on a bicycle. Is he still alive?
I have heard that he is. I don't know if he's in town.
Okay, so he was old when we were younger.
Okay.
But he's also one of those guys that he could have been 40 and look like he's 80. But he would drive around all around town on his bicycle, and he was famous for going down to the high school and watching all the girls' sports practices. He was extremely perverted.
Worse than the guy that
he would follow people too.
Yes,
Awesome.
he would follow you home.
It was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got in trouble for going to the neighborhoods that have summer homes and jamming pennies in like outside outlets.
Why?
to cause a fire.
Yeah, but like, why did he decide to be a firebug? Like, that's just weird.
I don't know. Just because he's
crazy.
a
Walter.
jerk. He's crazy. He's crazy.
One of my first like face-to-face encounters with Crazy Walter was when I had first started working at the diner, and the bus used to come every day, and he used to show up and like try to help people load their bags onto the bus for money.
Okay.
And I was told by my boss I had to go out there and yell at him to go away. It's like, well, like that doesn't seem right. But not long after that, he showed up at my door one night at like 2:00 in the morning, and was just like banging on my front door. And my dad answered the door. My dad was like snoozing on the couch. He was like watching TV and fell asleep on the couch. And so my dad got up and answered the door, and I came running. And first of all, it was on the front door, and we never used the front door in this house. We always used the side door. And so we like had to move stuff out of the way just to open the front door. And so my dad opens up the door and he says, "Can I help you?" And I just hear this voice say, "Tell me how to get back to the road. I got to get back to the main road. I got lost." And I'm like, oh my God, Crazy Walter's at my house in the middle of the night. And I'm like standing there like, Dad, that's Crazy Walter. Just tell him to go away. Dad. And he like wouldn't leave. And he's like, "Tell me how to get to the road. Will you take me there? Tell me how to get back to the main road. Will you take me there?" Like trying to get my dad to like put his bike in the car and like drive him there. And finally I was like, Dad, you got to do this. And I just walked over. I was like, "Walter, go home. Your mother's calling you." And he just ran over to the bike and got on it and drove away. That's how he got rid of Crazy Walter. True. If you ever needed to get rid of him, he just said, "Walter, your mother's calling you," and he'd run away. So.
Awesome.
Anyway,
yes.
I'm watching the viewership of the podcast just go down as we tell these stories. I also conveniently waited until after we had the event in Wareham to tell people about how crazy Wareham is.
That's so
I didn't
kind
even
of
get
you.
to tell you. I didn't get to tell you the best story. And I might as well tell it on the air because why not? The event happened last week, and people came from all over. We had people coming from different parts of the country. We had California.
Yep.
We had Jimmy coming up from wherever he is now, Tennessee. I don't know, Jimmy. You can correct me.
Yeah.
But we had people coming from all over, and we had some folks that came from the North Shore area, and everybody asks me like, where can I stay? I'm like, well, there's a nice Marriott in Wareham now, and then everybody says, but it's like $300 a night. Where else can we stay? And so I usually will direct them to our friends at the Days Inn in Middleborough,
Right.
or another similar type place. There's a couple like right over the bridge, but these folks didn't ask me about where to stay. I thought they were just going to drive home afterwards. And they booked a room at the Rosewood Motel.
Oh, man.
And they're like, we don't know what this place is that we're staying at. I'm like, how did you even get a room at the Rosewood?
Is that the
Because
one that,
people live there year round.
Is that the one that some guy got stabbed in?
Alabama, Jimmy. Yes, it
Okay.
actually was. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
It was. They might have been in that room for
Right,
all I
right.
know. But yeah, so anyway, I thought that was, I was
That's
like,
fun. Oh, we had a good time.
they were like, as they walked by, they said to us, they said, as we were driving here, I turned to them and I said, at least we didn't have to stay at that Starlight Motel. And I just started laughing because I lived
There's
there
no
once.
vacancy.
I lived there once. All right,
My
anyway.
goodness.
Well, that does it for this week's Spooky South Coast. We went over time
Yes.
a little bit.
Thank
We
God.
started late, so we went late. But that's... Sometimes we go off script.
Just a little bit.
But
Not
it's fun.
often.
People like it. And again, so don't forget, if you want to get those last 4 tickets for the SK Pierce Mansion event on September 9th, there, like I said, 4 left. As Stephanie mentioned earlier, they are done with ticket sales on Monday. Those spots will just go empty if nobody buys the tickets, and that would be a huge shame because this place is ridiculous
Yes.
when it comes to activity. As I always say, it's the only time I've ever been on an investigation where I felt like I was in a horror movie.
Same here.
And
Something happens every single time I go, so
I will stir shit up when we go.
we usually do, the two of us together.
No, I will intentionally stir it up.
Stop it.
I will. I haven't said her name yet.
Stop. No, don't
Was
you
it? No,
dare.
it was Cameron last week was trying to get me to say
Really?
it.
Well,
Yes.
he's coming, so.
And I said, well, I can't say it now because Stephanie will get mad, but I'll say it the night of the event.
And Stephanie will still get mad.
Cameron is also coming to Lizzie Borden's.
Is he?
Yes.
That is so
He
exciting.
said he didn't think that he could come to 2 events in
Yes. he
1
told me
month,
that.
but he is. So
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited.
he's going to love Lizzie Borden's.
Yes, he will.
And you will too, and we have tickets left for that as well. It's about halfway sold out. It's Lizzie's Axe to Fall. It's happening on September 23rd, so get your tickets to that as well because those will go fast. And if you get involved right now with that Lizzie Borden event, if you buy your tickets online, I do still have some room vacancies. So you can also stay the night for an extra $125 per person plus tax because that's paid directly to the house because they have to charge you hotel tax and all that. So all the details are up on our website, SpookySouthCoast.com, if you want to get that. All right. Well, that does it for plugging events. I will just plug one more time. Everybody tune in Tuesday night to Haunted Towns as they head to Salem. I'm not in this episode, but I was there when they filmed it. And I got to see some of the stuff and some of the behind-the-scenes creation of the show, and it was very fascinating. It was also snowing. So I felt bad because I brought them up in April, and it was snowing. But we will be live tweeting during that show as well. If you want to follow along with me on Twitter, I like to live tweet during it and had a great time talking to everybody. I do ask, I kind of brought back the Ghost Stalkers thing of asking everybody to send a picture of the face they make while they're watching the show and hashtagging
I
it
did
Haunted
not take
Towns.
one.
So we got a few. We got some people
Did
that
you?
sent them. Yeah.
Awesome.
I stole that from Chad. It was Chad Lindbergh that started
Okay.
doing that. So anyway, we'll be back with another show next Saturday night. So until then, for Matt, for Stephanie, for Chris, I'm Tim. We want you all to stay spooktacular.